What is up, everybody? Renfail here. Hopefully you are doing well. Back again with another beginner's guide to New World Aeternum. Now, if you're someone who has already played the game, most of these tips are not going to apply to you, so you can watch if you want, just for your own entertainment. But otherwise, there's a playlist down below which has a lot of other guides, but this is obviously designed for the new players who are coming into the game for the first time, ahead of the Nighthaven DLC, which is just around the corner. Now, today we're going to be talking about some of the strategies for survival in the game, because when you're going through the game, there's a lot of stuff that is unique to the New World experience that is pretty useful to know as you get going, so that you feel free to play around with things and not feel like it's the end of the world if you make a mistake. Because, like Bob Ross would say, just happy little accidents, and everything is meant to be enjoyed in this game in a casual manner. It's a pretty chill, cozy game, so let's dive right in. So, one of the big things out of the gate is that when you're getting going, you're going to have all of these attribute points to spend as you level up. Now, the big thing about this is that there's no wrong way to spend. Essentially, the base version of this is that all of the points apply towards specific weapon styles. So if you want specific bonuses for a type of weapon that you're going to be using, then you focus on those stats. But the number one rule of thumb here is that if you are having problems surviving with survivability, you can never go wrong with Constitution, which is going to give you an increase to your hit points. You can play around with respecing freely up until level 60. After that point, it does start to cost some. It's not overly expensive, but you can play around with things for free for quite some time. So as you go through the early stages of the game, you might have started off with one of the archetypes, right? And then you get 10 hours into the game and you realize, man, I'm just not feeling the weapon, right? I'm just not feeling the blunderbuss, or I'm just not feeling the sword and shield. I want to try something else. I got this really cool ice gauntlet, right? Or I got this really cool great sword and I want to try that out. But if you were running, keep hitting the wrong button. If you were running a dex build and suddenly you've got a strength-based weapon, how do you solve that? Just respec. Try it out. It's free up until level 60, so you have a lot of flexibility to play around with things as you're getting going in the early stages of the game. The other thing to consider is that gear, in the early stages of the game, you can sort of mix and match things. But there is an idea of, like, you should probably either decide to go heavy, medium, or light. The big defining factor of that, of course, is mitigation. You're going to get the most mitigation out of heavy armor and the least mitigation out of light armor, but what you trade off is mobility. Now, for me, I like to play an agile character, which means I like to duck and tumble. Now, you notice that it costs a bit of energy, which is represented there in the middle pool by the duck and tumble. The reality is that the heavier your armor, the less mobility you have. Heavy characters can't duck and tumble. It's kind of like a sort of step to the side, because you're instead meant to be just taking the hit with your armor, and or if you have a shield, to be blocking accordingly. So if you want to focus on having a high armor class, you go with heavy armor. If you want to be light and mobile like I like to be, then you obviously need to focus on light armor. So that's something to consider, because there is a cost associated with wearing different types of gear. I will probably eventually trade out these officer boots for some light, because I'm actually wearing medium right now. I need to trade those out for light, but I haven't found anything yet that I want to trade out for. But that's the other thing, is like, you're going to get a lot of gear as you go along throughout the game, and you can freely mix and match things as you want. Just bear in mind that there is that sort of weight limit to being able to duck and tumble as you're going through the game. The other thing is whether or not you decide to craft. Now, crafting is an entirely optional thing. There's a ton of trade skills in the game, and you don't have to craft, but I would highly recommend, for the survivability of new players, I would highly recommend focusing on creating your own potions and your own food. and drink, because those things are going to give you a ton of survivability. First and foremost, being able to craft potions that give you the most health regen and the longest timers in terms of the regen for the health meals. So like this meal, I have 40 minutes of food buff when I run that. Also being able to have these energizing light rations, which do one does health regen, the other one does mana regen, which is useful for pretty much everybody. And then, of course, doing things like your honing stones, being able to give you increased weapon damage. There are a lot of different things that you can craft for your character. But I would say in terms of survivability, it's going to be mostly about the potions and the food, because those are going to give you the most bang for your buck. Now, as far as gear goes, you're going to be getting lots of gear from quests. Being able to craft gear that is better than what you get from quests is a grind in and of itself. And I mentioned this for new players in passing because if you do decide that you want to do crafting in this game, you're also going to have to be doing harvesting. Harvesting and crafting are both a huge time sink. Highly rewarding, extremely rewarding, especially in the long-term scope of if you're going to be playing this game for hundreds of hours. But if you're someone who's just going to be coming in to play, the base experience, get the story, and then you're going to move on to other things, you're probably going to get 100 hours out of the story. You don't necessarily need to be putting a lot of time into crafting your own gear unless you want to. If you do decide that you want to, it is very important to understand that everything can be broken down and salvaged. You'll notice that button over there that says salvage. Other than when you get into the orange, some of the orange gear cannot be broken down. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Actually, that's not orange. That's like bright orange / red, whatever. So this specialty stuff, the artifact gear, cannot be broken down. Everything else, including your legendary gear, can be broken down for materials, including when you're crafting things. You'll have an option to salvage everything on your way out if you're not going to be using it to wear. But just understand, the way I played it is probably the first 40 levels of my character, I was crafting gear that was on par with what I was getting from quests. But by the time I got to level 40, it was starting to take so many resources and so much time invested to get all the materials created and harvested to craft the gear that it was just quicker for me to be able to just go and do the quests. So that is something to keep in mind. You can basically craft some of the best gear in the game, but it is a huge time commitment, so just be aware of that if you decide you're going to do that. And if you're going to be doing it, don't forget to basically salvage every single thing you come across in the game, because that's going to give you a huge boost in terms of these like little rare components and things. Like, so if I were to break down something here, like I don't need this chest plate, I don't think. What does it compare it just really quick while we're sitting here? I mean, it's got slightly better armor, but I don't really like the rest of it, so I'm going to go ahead and break that down. And when I break that down, you're going to get some materials. I got infused silk out of that, so that's used for other things. You could break down this rapier, got some coin from that. So all these things that you get can be broken down for other things. So that is a huge deal when you're going to be doing crafting. Probably one of the big tips I can give you too is, like, if you ever find yourself getting overwhelmed by enemies, I don't think I'm near anything at this particular location. Well, here's one. If you ever find yourself getting overwhelmed by something, a turkey is not going to be an enemy target that I have to worry about. But let's just say you come into a situation where you're running up to a cave or something like over here, and a bunch of wolves attack you, and you find yourself overwhelmed by lots and lots of monsters. They're going to eat your face off. Run away, because everything in the game has a leash, essentially. And at some point, if you can stay ahead of everybody and keep away from them, they will drop and run back to their spawn location. So if ever you are in doubt and trying to survive something, just run. run away as fast as you can, the way you came, and you will eventually drop those targets and survive. And that is the most important thing, is to survive. Apart from that, death doesn't really sting that much in this game. The one thing you do have to worry about, though, is that your respawn locations are based on what was the most recent respawn location you were at. Things like outposts such as these, but also things like the fast travel beacons. So anytime you see that little icon right there across the map, you want to unlock as many of those as you can find across the game, and it's a pretty big map. I still have some down here, around the edges that I haven't unlocked yet. But that is something you should always be aware of, is unlocking the fast travel points as often as you can, because if you do fall in combat, it's more of a when, not if. You will eventually fall. You'll want to be able to respawn in the closest location as possible to be able to get back as easily as you can. And apart from that, I would say when it comes to questing, and each one of these areas has plenty of main quests, and I think that's probably the number one tip you're going to find if you Google in like number one tips for survival for new players. It's going to be like just focus on the main quest. But I would also argue that there are a ton of side quests in this game, and they are totally worth doing for XP and gear. So like all of these little these diamonds that you see on the map, those are side quests. There are, I would argue, over 100 hours of side quests in this game, on top of the roughly 100 hours of main gameplay that exists as of this recording, which is pre-Nighthaven. Nighthaven is a new region that's coming into the game in a few days, which is going to add an additional zone and additional content to the game, as well as an increased level cap. So there is a lot to do. Don't sleep on these side quests, because it's free coin, it's free gear, it's free XP. All of those things are great towards fleshing out your character and making yourself the most powerful you can be. So those are some easy starting tips for new players on how to get the most out of surviving in New World Aeternum. Hopefully you found them useful. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Check out the playlist for more, and I'll see everybody in the next stream or video. Until then, stay safe. Happy gaming.